The stars shimmered above the planet's dark surface like scattered jewels. The air was thick with the smell of burnt metal and dust. Captain Elias Carter stood among the ruins, scanning the remains of what had once been a colony. His team had responded to a distress signal, but when they arrived, they found only silence. Buildings were half destroyed, machines melted from heat, and the sand was blackened as if a firestorm had swept through. Elias had seen many strange worlds in his years as a space explorer, but this one felt different, heavy, almost sad. The sky carried a faint red glow, and even the wind seemed to whisper of tragedy. "Captain, we found something," shouted Sergeant Nia, one of his crew members. Elias turned quickly, running toward the sound. The team stood near a collapsed structure, their flashlights shining into the rubble. At first, Elias thought it was debris. Then the shape moved. It was a child. She was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with pale, almost silvery skin and glowing blue eyes. Her clothes were torn, her hands trembling as she tried to crawl away from the light. Elias knelt down slowly, removing his helmet so she could see his face. His voice softened. "It's okay, little one. We're not going to hurt you?" The girl tilted her head, confused. She spoke a few words in a language they didn't understand, melodic, soft, and unfamiliar. Her eyes were filled with both fear and curiosity. "She's not human," Nia whispered. Elias nodded. "No, but she's alive. And that's what matters." He reached out his hand gently. After a long moment, the girl touched his fingers. Her hand was warm, not cold as he expected. For some reason, Elias felt a strange sense of peace when she looked at him. It was as if she trusted him, or maybe she had no one else to trust. The team brought her back to their ship, the Odyssey, and scanned for injuries. Her vital signs were unusual, her DNA unlike anything in the Galactic Archive. She didn't seem dangerous, just frightened and alone. When they tried to ask her name, she hesitated, then softly whispered something that sounded like Lyra. The crew decided that would be her name. From that day forward, Lyra became part of the Odyssey's family. At first, she barely spoke. She stayed close to Elias, following him around like a quiet shadow. The crew tried to make her comfortable. Nia brought her books with pictures. The engineer, Tom Reyes, built her a small robot toy that blinked and rolled around the corridors. Lyra smiled when she saw it for the first time. A shy, uncertain smile that melted everyone's hearts. Days turned into weeks, and the mysterious girl began to adapt. She learned human language faster than anyone expected. Within months, she could speak simple words. "Food?" she would ask softly. "Sleep?" she'd murmur when tired. And sometimes, when she saw stars through the ship's window, she would whisper something in her own tongue. Words no one could translate. The crew loved her. Even in a galaxy full of danger, she brought warmth and laughter. She helped Tom fix broken panels, though no one could explain how she knew what to do. When the ship's power grid overloaded once, Lyra simply placed her hands on the circuit and a faint blue light pulsed from her palms. The system stabilized instantly. "She's got some kind of bioenergy control," Tom said, astonished. "Whatever she is," Elias replied, "she's special. We take care of her." Years passed. Lyra grew up among humans. Her once silver skin softened into a faint shimmer, barely noticeable unless under strong light. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly, allowing her to blend in better. She was no longer the frightened child Elias had rescued. She was strong, curious, and kind. Yet sometimes when the ship passed through quiet parts of space, Lyra would sit alone by the viewport staring at distant stars. She often traced strange symbols on the glass, elegant curves and circles that none of the humans could read. When Elias asked what they meant, she only said, "I don't remember, but they make me feel safe." Still, something about her past lingered in the air, a quiet mystery everyone could sense but no one could solve. One night, while the Odyssey drifted through deep space, the ship's alarm blared. "Incoming signal," Nia reported. "Encrypted transmissions, old frequency pattern. Doesn't match any known human code." Elias frowned. "Origin? Unknown system. Signal strength rising." The sound echoed through the speakers, a slow, rhythmic pulse almost like a heartbeat. Along with it came an image, a symbol glowing in deep gold light. It looked like a star surrounded by curved wings. The moment it appeared on the screen, Lyra froze. Her eyes widened. Her hand began to tremble. "Lyra, what is it?" Elias asked. She stepped closer to the display, her voice barely a whisper. I've seen this before. Tom looked puzzled. Where? Lyra's gaze turned distant. In my dreams. The message repeated over and over, but no one could decode it. Finally, the signal stopped. The crew was left in silence, exchanging uneasy glances. Captain, Nia said. That symbol, it matches something Lyra used to draw when she was little. Elias remembered the sketches she made as a child when she had no words. Circles, lines, and that same winged star. At the time, everyone thought it was just a drawing from her imagination. But now, it seemed like a calling. We'll keep monitoring, Elias said finally. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Lyra nodded, but there was fear in her eyes. Weeks later, as the Odyssey was patrolling near the outer rim, the same signal returned, and stronger, clearer, and this time carrying coordinates. Before they could react, their sensors detected movement. Multiple ships incoming, Nia shouted. They're not human. The fleet emerged from hyperspace, sleek silver vessels with curved hulls that shimmered like liquid light. They surrounded the Odyssey in perfect formation. Their main ship, larger than a city, broadcast a message in a language none of the humans recognized. Then suddenly, Lyra stood up and whispered, "They're speaking Valorian." Everyone turned to her in shock. "You understand them?" Elias asked. Lyra hesitated. "Not everything, but they're asking for someone. They're saying, 'The heir has been found.'" "The heir?" Nia echoed. "Heir to what?" Lyra's hand moved unconsciously to her wrist, where a faint mark like a glowing pattern began to appear beneath her skin. It pulsed with light, the same gold as the fleet's symbols. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Lyra, what's happening?" "I don't know," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "But I think they're talking about me." The Valorian fleet didn't attack. Instead, one ship sent a smaller craft forward. It stopped just outside the Odyssey and projected a hologram into the command deck. A tall figure appeared, elegant with silver skin and glowing eyes like Lyra's. His voice was calm but carried authority. "Humans," he said. "You have something that belongs to us." Elias stepped forward. "We don't take what's not ours." "Who are you?" "I am Lord Kale of Valoria," the figure replied. "And you are harboring our lost princess." The crew was silent. Lyra stood frozen, her lips parted in disbelief. "That's impossible," Elias said firmly. "She's one of us. We found her alone, abandoned." Kyle's tone softened slightly. "She was hidden for her safety long ago. Our empire fell into war. The royal child was sent away, lost among the stars. We have searched for her ever since." Lyra took a step forward. "If I am your princess," she said slowly, "why can't I remember you?" Kale looked at her with something like sorrow. "Because the truth was locked away to protect you. But now the time has come to return home." Elias's jaw tightened. "She's not going anywhere until I know she'll be safe." Kyle's image flickered, the faintest hint of irritation breaking through his calm. "You are brave, human, but you do not understand what you guard." Then the transmission ended. Lyra stood silently, her hands shaking. The crew watched her, unsure what to say. Elias finally placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. You're not alone." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears she didn't understand. "Thank you, Captain." Outside, the Valorian ships remained in position, waiting. The crew prepared for the worst, but deep down, Elias knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the depths of space, a forgotten royal line had awakened. And the quiet alien girl they had raised like family might be the key to an empire's return. Yet, for Lyra, one thing was certain. No matter what her past revealed, her heart belonged to the humans who had given her a home. And as the first light of dawn rose over the alien horizon, the adopted girl of the Odyssey began to face the truth of who she truly was. The silence on the Odyssey felt heavier than space itself. Outside the window, the Valorian fleet hung like silver ghosts, unmoving but powerful. Hundreds of ships, each shaped like curved wings of light, surrounded the small human vessel. The humans were hopelessly outnumbered. Inside the command deck, the crew worked in tense silence. Red lights blinked on the control panels. The ship's shields were up, but everyone knew they wouldn't last long against such an armada. Captain Elias Carter stood beside Lyra, who stared through the glass window at the glowing ships. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of fear and confusion. "I don't understand," she whispered.
Why now?
"Why after all these years?" Elias's voice was steady but gentle. Maybe they finally found what they were looking for. Lyra looked down at her hands. The faint golden mark on her wrist still glowed softly, as if answering a call from the ships outside. She had tried covering it with a bandage, but it shone through like light beneath water. Engineer Tom Reyes broke the silence. "Captain, they're hailing us again." Elias nodded. "Put them through." A beam of golden light filled the command deck, forming the tall figure of Lord Kale once again. His voice was deep, calm, and full of quiet command. "Humans of Earth," Kale said, "we come not as enemies but as seekers. You have something sacred in your care. We ask that you surrender her peacefully." Elias crossed his arms. "You mean Lyra?" Kale inclined his head. "Yes, Princess Lyra Valora, heir to the Valorian Empire. Her people have waited centuries for her return." Lyra took a small step forward. "If I am who you say I am, why don't I remember anything? Why was I left alone on a dead world?" Kale's eyes softened, but his voice carried sadness. "Because your mother, our late empress, hid you to protect you. The Empire was falling to war. She sent you away beyond the reach of our enemies. We believed you lost, until now." Lyra's heart ached. The word mother hit her like a wave. "And now you want me to return?" she asked quietly. "To rule people I don't even know?" Kale's tone became firmer. "It is your destiny, Princess. You were born to lead." Elias stepped forward. "She was raised as one of us. She's human in her heart now. You can't just take her away." Kyle turned his glowing eyes toward him. "Human captain, your species has always been proud. But this is not your decision. The princess belongs to her people." Elias didn't move. "She belongs where she chooses." The hologram flickered for a moment, then vanished. The transmission ended. Tension filled the air. Nia slammed her hand on the console. "They're not backing off. Their ships are surrounding us tighter." "Shields up," Elias ordered. "No one fires unless they fire first." Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "You can't fight them, Captain. There are hundreds of ships out there." "Maybe not," he said. "But I'm not handing over one of my crew to strangers who talk about destiny like it's a cage." Lyra wanted to argue, but she couldn't find the words. Deep inside, she knew Elias would never abandon her, and that made her heart both warm and heavy. For hours, the two fleets stared at each other through the darkness of space. No shots were fired, but tension grew thicker with every minute. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "Captain, maybe I should go." Elias turned sharply. "No, listen to me," she said softly. "If I go, maybe they'll leave you alone. I can find out what they want. I need to know who I am." Elias sighed deeply. He could see the fear behind her calm eyes. "And what if they don't let you come back?" Lyra hesitated. "Then at least I'll know the truth." Elias looked at her for a long time. Finally, he said, "If you go, you don't go alone." Lyra smiled faintly. "You always say that." They sent a small shuttle toward the Valorian flagship. Lyra sat by the window, her hands resting on her knees, staring at the endless stars. Elias sat across from her, watching her carefully. "You sure about this?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "All my life I've wondered where I came from. Now I have a chance to find out, but..." She looked up at him. "You're my family too. That will never change." Elias smiled softly. "You're one of us, Lyra. Don't forget that." When they reached the flagship, they were guided into a grand hangar glowing with golden light. The air shimmered with strange energy, and elegant guards stood in perfect lines. Every wall was carved with symbols that matched the mark on Lyra's wrist. At the far end stood Lord Kale. He bowed deeply when Lyra approached. "Welcome home, Princess." Lyra's voice was uncertain. "This doesn't feel like home." Kale studied her carefully. "You have her eyes," he said quietly. "Your mother, the Empress, would be proud." Elias stepped forward. "If this is really her home, then why are there armed guards at every door?" Kale's tone cooled. "You misunderstand. These guards are to protect her, not to imprison her." Lyra's gaze wandered over the hall. The banners, the glowing crystals, the quiet whispers of the alien attendants who watched her with awe. Everything seemed familiar and foreign at the same time. She felt memories stirring, faint images of tall silver trees, of laughter echoing in marble halls, of a soft voice singing her to sleep. But the moment she tried to focus, the memories faded like mist. Kyle guided them to a grand chamber filled with ancient technology. At its center stood a crystal pedestal. "This is the heart of Vyloria," Kyle said. "It holds the memory of our royal line. Place your hand upon it and you will remember who you are." Lyra looked at Elias. He nodded slowly. "Go ahead, Lyra, we're right here." She placed her hand on the crystal. A beam of golden light surrounded her. Symbols floated around her like glowing dust. For a moment she saw flashes of faces. Her mother's gentle smile, soldiers kneeling, a city of light beneath twin suns. Her breath caught in her throat. Then suddenly the light stopped. Lyra staggered and Elias caught her before she fell. "What happened?" he asked urgently. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. "I saw everything. My mother hid me because my uncle, Kyle, tried to take the throne." The room went silent. Elias's eyes hardened as he looked at Kale. "Is that true?" Kale didn't answer immediately. "The Empress was weak," he said at last. "She believed in peace when the galaxy respected only strength. I did what I had to do." Lyra's voice rose, trembling with anger. "You betrayed her." Kyle looked at her coldly. "And yet without me there would be no empire left for you to return to." Elias stepped in front of Lyra. "Then it's not an empire worth saving." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Careful, human. You speak in the presence of royalty. Then you should start acting like you care about her." Elias shot back. For a long moment, Kale said nothing. Then quietly he turned to Lyra. "You have a choice, princess. Join me, restore the throne and rule your people. Or stay with these humans and remain lost forever." Lyra's heart pounded. The golden mark on her wrist pulsed like a heartbeat. She looked at Elias, who said nothing, only waiting for her to choose. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I choose them," she said firmly. "The humans, because they taught me what family really means." Kale's face turned cold. "Then you are no daughter of Vyloria." He raised his hand and guards stepped forward, weapons humming. Elias moved quickly, pulling Lyra behind him. "Run," he whispered. The next moments were chaos. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and Lyra's energy flared from her palms in a wave of blue light. It struck the guards' weapons, sending them flying. The humans fought their way back to the shuttle, dodging fire and shouting commands. Elias guided the ship out of the hangar just as the flagship's cannons powered up. "Hold on!" he shouted. The shuttle shot toward the Odyssey, chased by bursts of golden plasma. Lyra pressed her hands to the control panel, her eyes glowing bright blue. A shimmering energy shield formed around them, deflecting the blasts. They barely made it inside the hangar before the Valorian fleet surrounded them again. Lyra stood beside Elias, breathing hard. "He'll come after us," Elias nodded. "Then we'll be ready." Outside, the stars glowed cold and distant. The Valorian Empire had returned, but so had their lost princess. And now, for the first time, she knew the truth. Her people wanted her crown, but the humans had given her something far greater. They had given her a home. The Odyssey drifted through silent space, its hull marked with burns from the escape. Inside, the crew moved quickly to repair the damage. Sparks hissed, alarms blinked, and the air carried the sharp smell of metal and stress. Captain Elias Carter stood in the command deck, watching the radar. The Valorian fleet still blocked their path, shining like cold silver stars. No matter where they turned, the aliens were there. "They're following us again," said Nia, her voice tight. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it by now." "What are they waiting for?" "They want her," Elias said quietly. "They want Lyra." Lyra stood beside him, her hands clenched. Her eyes glowed faintly with blue light. She could feel something deep inside her, a pulse like a second heartbeat calling to her from the enemy fleet. Tom Reyes entered the room, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Engines are stable, Captain, but we can't keep dodging them forever." Elias nodded. "Then we make a stand." Lyra looked up at him in surprise. "You mean fight them?" He gave a small, grim smile. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one. But first we need to know their weakness." That night, the ship floated in the shadow of a nearby moon. The crew gathered in the strategy room. A holographic image of the Valorian flagship hovered above the table. Lyra stared at it, her heart heavy. "I remember that ship," she said softly. "It used to be called the Celestial Crown. It was my mother's flagship." Elias leaned forward. "Then you might know how to stop it." Lyra closed her eyes, searching her fading memories. "There's a central power crystal inside. The heart core. It links to every ship in the fleet. If it's damaged, the whole system shuts down. Tom whistled. So, we just need to sneak into the biggest ship in the fleet and hit the most guarded spot on board. Easy. Nia gave him a look. Nothing about this is easy. Elias looked at Lyra. You're the only one who can guide us through their systems. Lyra nodded slowly. Then I'll do it. The Odyssey powered down all visible lights and moved quietly through the dark side of the moon. Their plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the flagship, disable the heart core, and end the standoff before it turned into war. Elias led the small team, Lyra, Nia, and Tom. As they approached in a stealth shuttle, the giant Valorian ship grew larger and larger until it filled the entire view. It was beautiful in a haunting way, with shining silver towers and golden veins of energy pulsing across its surface. Lyra whispered, "It's like a memory come to life." They landed inside a maintenance bay undetected. The moment they stepped out, Lyra felt the ship's hum echo inside her chest. The air smelled familiar, a mix of crystal dust and soft energy. She had been here before long ago when she was just a child of the palace. They moved through dim corridors, their boots silent on the smooth floor. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, whispering in a forgotten language. Lyra touched one of them and the door ahead opened automatically. "You still have access," Nia said in awe. Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe my mother made sure I always would." Meanwhile, on the Odyssey, the remaining crew watched the radar nervously. The Valorian fleet began to shift positions. Something had alerted them. "Come on, Captain," whispered the pilot. "Get out of there." Inside the flagship, the team reached a vast chamber filled with golden machinery. In the center floated a huge crystal sphere, glowing and pulsing like a living heart. "The heart core," Lyra breathed. Elias looked at her. "You know what to do?" Lyra stepped forward, her hands shaking. "It's linked to me somehow. I can feel it listening." She placed her hands on the glowing surface. The crystal responded instantly, lighting up brighter, reflecting her memories and emotions. Flashes filled her mind, her mother's face, her home world, and the moment she was sent away in a small pod as war raged outside. Tears welled in her eyes. "She didn't abandon me. She saved me." Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the chamber. "I knew you would come." They turned sharply. Lord Kale stood in the doorway, surrounded by guards in golden armor. His expression was calm but cold. Elias moved in front of Lyra. "We're not leaving without her." Kyle's eyes glowed. "You are brave, human, but foolish. The princess cannot hide behind you forever." Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong. "You betrayed my mother." Kale's tone hardened. "Your mother was weak. She wanted peace with lesser species. I wanted to save our kind." "You destroyed our world," Lyra said, her eyes shining with anger. "You call that saving?" Kale raised a hand. "You don't understand the cost of mercy. Join me, Lyra. Together we can rebuild our empire stronger than ever. The humans will serve under us, not beside us." Elias spoke firmly. "That's not going to happen." Kale's voice turned sharp. "You think your small species can stand against the Valorian Empire?" Elias smiled faintly. "We've stood against worse." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then you will learn fear." The guards rushed forward. Nia fired first, sending blue energy bolts across the chamber. Tom rolled behind a pillar, throwing an EMP grenade. The explosion shook the room, disrupting the guards' weapons. Elias drew his pulse rifle, covering Lyra. Kale moved fast, faster than any human could see. He struck Elias with a wave of energy that threw him to the ground. "You are out of your depth, human." Elias coughed but forced a grin. "Maybe, but I'm not alone." At that moment, Lyra's energy burst from her palms, creating a glowing shield around her friends. The golden crystal behind her began to vibrate, responding to her power. The entire ship trembled. Kale shouted, "Stop! You'll destroy us all!" Lyra's voice echoed through the chamber. "You built an empire on fear. I'll end it with hope." Her energy surged brighter, flooding the heart core with blue light. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Alarms blared. The Valorian ships outside began to drift out of formation as their systems failed. Elias grabbed her arm. "Lyra, it's collapsing." "We have to go." She looked at Kyle one last time. "Goodbye, Uncle." Kyle reached toward her, but a wall of light pushed him back. The humans ran through the corridor as explosions rocked the flagship. Energy beams cracked through the floor and fire tore through the walls. They reached the shuttle just as the ship began to break apart. Nia slammed the controls, launching them into space. Behind them, the great flagship of Valoria cracked in half, glowing like a falling star. On the Odyssey, cheers filled the air as the shuttle returned. The crew rushed to greet them. Lyra was pale but alive. Elias smiled at her proudly. "You did it," he said softly. "You saved us all." Lyra shook her head. "I only wanted to stop him. But now the Valorians are leaderless. They'll come after us again." Elias rested a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face them together." But even as they celebrated, something unexpected happened. The Valorian fleet didn't attack. Instead, one by one, their ships powered down. Then a voice echoed through the communication channel. Soft, calm, and strange. "This is Admiral Thalen of the Valorian fleet. The Heart Core has spoken." "The true princess lives?" Lyra looked confused. "The Heart Core?" Thalen continued. "Your power awakened its memory. It recognized you as the rightful heir. We no longer serve Lord Kale. We serve you, Princess Lyra." The command deck fell silent. Elias looked at her, smiling faintly. "Looks like your people just changed sides." Lyra stared at the screen, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "I never wanted a throne," Elias nodded. "Then maybe you can build something better than one." Hours later, Lyra stood alone by the viewport, watching the stars drift past. The light of the ruined flagship still shimmered in the distance like a golden cloud. She thought about her mother, about Kale, and about the humans who had risked everything for her. Elias joined her quietly. "You okay?" She smiled softly. "I think I finally understand who I am." "Who's that?" he asked. "Someone who belongs to both worlds," she said. "A princess by birth, but human by choice." Elias nodded. "Then maybe you're exactly what the galaxy needs." She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly. "Thank you for believing in me," he smiled. "Always." Outside, the stars continued to shine. Silent witnesses to the rebirth of a lost empire and the courage of one girl who chose kindness over power. The battle was over. But a new story was just beginning. A story not of conquest but of unity. And at its heart stood Lyra, the adopted alien girl who had become a princess of both humanity and hope. The Odyssey glided through quiet space, its engines low and steady. After the battle with the Valorian flagship, the crew was exhausted yet relieved. The fleet around them, once an overwhelming threat, now floated silently, their ships powerless but intact. Captain Elias Carter sat in the command deck, staring at the stars. He had fought many battles, faced countless dangers, but this one had been different. It wasn't about territory, profit, or glory. This fight had been about family, trust, and the courage to choose what is right. Lyra stood beside him, gazing out at the stars. Her golden mark pulsed faintly, a reminder of the connection between her and the Valorian Empire. She had reclaimed her past, but she had also made a choice to protect the humans who had raised her, and to build a future guided by compassion. "I can't believe it's over," Lyra whispered. Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "The fleet? They actually listened to me," Elias smiled. "You didn't just tell them what to do. You showed them why it mattered. They saw the strength in what you stand for, kindness, fairness, hope." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "But now, I have a throne to claim, a kingdom full of people who expect me to lead, and I've never ruled anything before." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've been leading in ways you don't even realize. You protected us. You inspired us. You don't need a crown to rule. Your actions already show that you're a leader." Lyra took a deep breath, letting the warmth of his words sink in. For years, she had wondered where she truly belonged. Now she understood. It wasn't about where she was born, but who she chose to be. The crew prepared for the journey to Valoria, the homeworld of Lyra's people. The planet was a jewel of silver cities, floating towers, and forests that shimmered with faint crystal light. From orbit, it looked like a place untouched by war, serene, majestic, yet filled with whispers of history and responsibility. As they descended, Lyra felt a mix of fear and anticipation. Memories of her childhood surfaced, moments she had tried to forget. Her mother's gentle voice, the sound of crystal chimes in the royal halls, and the warmth of a family that had been taken from her. She realized that reclaiming her past would not be easy. The Odyssey landed near the capital, A gleaming city of silver towers and golden pathways. Citizens watched the arrival of the humans and Lyra with awe. The Valorian fleet had announced her as their princess, but her people had never seen her face until now. Lyra stepped out onto the landing platform. Her eyes scanned the crowd, seeing the hope and fear in the faces of those who had awaited her for centuries. She took a deep breath and raised her hand in greeting. "I am Lyra Valora," she said clearly. "I have returned not to rule with fear but with understanding. Not to demand loyalty but to earn it. I am your princess, but I am also a child of humanity. And I will protect all lives under my care, human and Valorian alike." For a long moment, silence filled the city. Then slowly cheers rose, hesitant at first, then swelling into a chorus of hope. The people had recognized something more than a royal heir. They had recognized a leader who could bridge worlds. Inside the palace, Lyra walked through halls she had only seen in fragmented memories. She touched the walls, tracing the elegant symbols and glowing veins of energy. Every step reminded her of her mother, of the stories she had been told and the sacrifices made to keep her safe. Elias, Nia, and Tom followed closely behind. Though outsiders in this alien world, they had earned respect not as warriors, but as friends of the princess who had defended them, and whose courage had earned the trust of an entire people. Lyra entered the royal chamber, where the heart core hovered, still glowing faintly. She placed her hands upon it, feeling the pulse of the entire planet, the heartbeat of her people. In that moment, she understood the depth of responsibility before her. The heart core did not demand obedience. It demanded care, wisdom, empathy, and courage. Lyra closed her eyes. She could feel the memories of her ancestors, the hopes of the people, and the whispers of her mother. She realized that leadership was not about power, but about choices, protection, and the courage to act rightly even when it's hard. Meanwhile, outside the palace, some of Lord Kale's former soldiers had gathered. They were conflicted, unsure whether to follow the new princess or resist. But one by one, they remembered the events of the recent battle, the bravery of humans who had risked everything, the compassion Lyra had shown even to those who had tried to control her, and the energy that pulsed from her heart. Slowly, Kale's loyal soldiers knelt, acknowledging her as their leader. Some wept quietly, realizing that the empire they had served under fear was now led by someone who believed in hope. Back inside the palace, Lyra met with the Council of Valoria. Scholars, warriors, and representatives from every corner of the empire had gathered. Lyra addressed them plainly. "I did not return to rule with fear," she said. "I returned to protect, to learn from the mistakes of the past. Humans showed me the value of compassion, of family, of courage in the face of impossible odds. That is what I will bring to Valoria. Not conquest, but unity." The council murmured among themselves. One elder spoke up. "Princess, your words honor your mother's legacy. And yet how can we trust someone who has lived among humans for so long?" Lyra looked him in the eye. "Because I fought to protect my human family. Because I know what it means to make sacrifices for those who depend on you. Leadership is not about isolation. It's about responsibility. And I am ready to bear it for all of you." Silence fell again. Then, slowly, the council nodded, one after another, acknowledging her courage and clarity. Elias watched quietly from the corner. He had never seen Lyra so calm, so certain. She had grown from a scared child into a young woman capable of leading an entire empire, yet she had not lost the kindness and courage that made her human. Lyra turned to him. "You taught me that courage is more than fighting. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard." "Thank you," Elias smiled. "You've always had it inside you, Lyra. You just needed to see it for yourself." Nia and Tom joined them, nodding and smiling. Lyra realized something then. Her life had always been about family, no matter where she lived. Humans or Valorians, she had people who believed in her, and that gave her strength. The first challenge came swiftly. Reports arrived of rogue factions refusing to accept her rule. Lyra faced a choice: fight them with force or find another way. She chose the latter. She traveled to the rebel strongholds with a small group, including Elias. There, instead of weapons, she spoke with the people. She listened to their fears, acknowledged their pain, and shared her vision for the empire, one built on protection, justice, and unity. Her words were not magic, but they carried truth. Slowly, the rebels lowered their weapons. They saw that the princess who had grown among humans valued life and fairness over power and intimidation. By the end of the day, many of them joined her cause voluntarily. Months passed. Lyra worked tirelessly, building alliances, strengthening her people, and reforming the empire. She integrated human ideas into Valorian culture, creating schools for knowledge, centers for innovation, and programs to teach empathy and cooperation. Valoria flourished. The citizens saw that the princess they had feared might be distant and alien was in fact a bridge between worlds. She was a leader who could understand both the alien traditions and human values. The Odyssey crew became honored guests. Elias continued to advise her, though Lyra no longer needed protection. Humans and Valorians worked together, building a bond that promised peace and prosperity. One evening, Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The twin moons cast silver light over the towers. Elias joined her silently. "You've done more than I imagined," he said softly. Lyra smiled faintly. "It's because I wasn't alone. I had you, and everyone else who believed in me." Elias nodded. "You're not just a princess of Valoria. You're a princess of two worlds, one that taught you love and one that gave you legacy." Lyra's eyes glimmered with tears. "I don't feel like a princess because of a crown. I feel like one because I can protect people, because I can make a difference." Elias placed his hand gently on hers. "Then you already are one, Lyra, in every sense that matters." The city below sparkled like a sea of stars. Valoria had a new future, guided by compassion, courage, and hope. Humanity and Valoria were connected now, not by conquest or fear, but by a shared bond. And at the center of it all stood Lyra, the adopted alien girl who had become a devoted princess, not only by birthright, but by choice. For the first time in centuries, Valoria looked toward the future with peace in its heart, and Lyra knew she had truly found her place. A bridge between worlds, a guardian of life, and a symbol of hope for all who believed that courage, kindness, and love could change the galaxy. The stars above glimmered, as if applauding the journey of a girl who had found herself, united two civilizations, and shown that even in the darkest reaches of space, humanity's heart could shine brighter than any empire.